Today's video is sponsored by BlueTally, the ultimate in IT asset management, completely compatible with Microsoft 365, Intune, and so much more. Visit them today at bluetallyapp.com. In this video, I'm going to take you on a journey inside Microsoft Defender for Endpoint. What is it? How does it work? And how can I set it up easily? Stay tuned, you will learn something. Hello everyone, welcome to the channel. It's Andy here. I really do appreciate you stopping by. On today's episode, I thought I would take a look at Defender for Endpoint, an important component in Microsoft Defender's XDR platform. Defender for Endpoint can help you protect not just your mobile devices, but also PCs, Macs, Linux, and of course, Chrome OS devices as well. Now, if you haven't subscribed to the channel, I would love it if you would come on board, come and show us some love, clicking that subscribe button, ringing that bell, and come and join my learning community that I'm trying to build out. And if you'd like access to some full courses, as well as monthly Zoom calls and so much more, why not consider signing up to my Patreon page over there? It'll be great to welcome you on board. Now, questions and comments about this or any of my other sessions, of course, just get those down below. And as always, I'll do my best for you. Now, I had a couple of questions this week. Andy, can I do a session on Microsoft Copilot or Copilot for Microsoft 365 and also Microsoft Backup? Now, I have covered these topics before in the past, but unfortunately, I can't do a full demo of them just now because I can only get licenses for my own tenant, you understand? So the problem with that is it would potentially expose my private data. And of course, I don't want to do that in YouTube. So as soon as I get an opportunity to deploy this in a demo tenant and a demo environment, I'm there for you guys. Okay, so either without any further ado, let's jump in and have a look at Defender for Endpoint. Enjoy. So I'm coming into security.microsoft.com, and this, of course, is the Microsoft Defender suite of various products that we've got. Now, initially, of course, one of the things you're going to want to look at, if you've got the license, of course, make sure you've got that license, is Defender for Endpoint and here. Now, here we can see that we have a number of different tools. You've got vulnerability management, partners and APIs, evaluations and tutorials, and we've got configuration management here as well. Now, just moving up, this used to be in Defender for Endpoint, but it now has its own menu. So we also have access to exposure management, the attack surface, and this can include attack surface reduction, exposure insights, secure score, and then you've also got the opportunity to connect your data with the platform, which is absolutely invaluable. Now, in addition to that, just to show you the different places where we can connect, here you can see that I'm actually in the Intune Admin Center. So here in Endpoint Security, you can see that we also have a whole bunch of various tools. So including the ability to set antivirus, disk encryption, and you've got those attack reduction rules, and you can see how it integrates with the likes of Defender for Endpoint. Now in my demo here, I'm actually using two separate tenants, and the reason I'm doing that is because some of these this particular tenant is a read-only tenant. I just use this for demo purposes. Now, coming into the main Intune, or I should say the main Defender portal, you can see that we have a number of various products here. And specifically what we're looking at today are two. We're going to be looking at endpoints, and as I said, we're going to be looking at this exposure management. Now, the first thing that we need to do, of course, is we need to get our devices into Endpoint. So how do we do that? Well, for this, we simply come down into the portal, scroll right down to bottom of the page, and we have this settings area here. And in the settings area, you're going to have a whole bunch of settings. And in fact, this is potentially another admin center in itself, actually. So I'm going to come down here into the endpoints, and in the endpoints here, you can see we have a whole bunch of different features. So typically here we've got advanced, we've got licenses, email notifications, and I'll come back to these settings in a moment. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to scroll right down to the bottom of the page, and under the device management area, you can see that we've got two options. One is for onboarding and the other one is for offboarding. So one of the first things you're going to want to do is select the operating systems that you're working with. And you can see there's a fair old selection here. So assuming that you're using Windows 10 and Windows 11, you can see it says what connectivity type are you using. Are you using a streamlined, which is currently in preview, or are you using a standard connectivity type? Now you can see that we have, there are links here that take you to docs.microsoft.com. Now, in terms of the deployment method, how are you going to deploy it? So are you just wanting to generate a local script for perhaps up to 10 devices? Are you creating group policies? Are you going to use a config manager, mobile device management, aka Intune, or are you going to use a virtual desktop option? So again, you have that choice. So in this case, I'm going to say, yeah, I want to perhaps use Endpoint Configuration Manager or Intune, and what it will do is it will, first of all, you can then download the package. So once you've downloaded the package, what you want to do is just download it, and then as you can see, there is a little PowerShell script. And what this does is when you copy and paste that PowerShell script in, what it does is it pings that client and essentially wakes it up. And once the client is awake, you'll start to then see that data in Intune and also Defender for Endpoint. So likewise, the other option we've got here is at the end of life. So if you don't want that device to be monitored anymore, then we can simply come in here and there is an offboarding script that you can do, download that script, and again the same thing, and it will eventually remove that device. So once you've gone ahead and you've done that, what else have we got here? Now there are some really important settings before you get started, okay? The first of them are the advanced features. So again, we have a number of advanced features here, as well as things like options, and it's quite useful just to go through and have a look at these. So things like, do you want to restrict correlation between any scoped device groups? Do you want to put it in what we call EDR or in block mode? So again, what this does is it blocks malicious artifacts or behaviors observed through post-breach endpoint detection. Again, it's a nice additional security feature. You can automatically do things like resolve alerts. So one of the things that Defender for Endpoint has, of course, it integrates with Sentinel, and you've got automatic remediation, which is useful. Do you want to allow or block specific files? And again, later on, you'll be able to choose which those files are. And then, of course, hide potential duplicate device records. Sometimes this happens during synchronization. It can be a bit off-putting, so it's quite a nice feature, that as well. You can also configure your own network indicators as well. So things like IP addresses, domain names, URLs, and so on. Again, there is a very good knowledge base article there for you to do that. I really like tamper protection. There's nothing worse than somebody changing settings or updating things and just updating or upsetting the whole thing. So the tamper protection, I think, is really, really useful. Show user details. If you don't show that, you'll just see kind of an anonymous look. But if you actually want to see the username, then you're probably going to want to leave that on. Please note that this is not Azure Active Directory, of course. The screenshots have not been updated. It should say Entra ID. Things like Skype for Business integration, quite useful with things like communications, such as in Teams and so on. And then we've got Defender for Cloud Apps as well. So if you want to forward the Defender for Endpoint signals into the Cloud Apps admin portal, you can do that. You can also do it the other way as well. So things like device discovery allow onboarded devices to discover unmanaged devices on your network. Again, just good security, I think, don't you think? Also things like downloading quarantine files, streamline connectivity during onboarding. So we got a whole bunch of different things here. Attack notifications, absolutely. So if you want to be notified that something's going on, definitely apply that. And you can see it's putting your tenant ID as well as your admin ID in there. Very, very useful. So once you've done those preferences, you can go ahead and you can save those. Now, other things that you've also got the licenses. So it shows me what license that I've got here. Now, there are two plans for Defender for Endpoint. Plan 1 allows you to obviously discover potential threats, but it doesn't give you some of the power that Plan 2 brings you. So you don't have some of the automation capabilities. You don't have some of the deep kind of investigative tools there. So here it shows you how many licenses you've got, and you can also assign licenses there as well. If you want to set up email notifications for people, that's always quite useful, I suppose. And then you've got things like the auto remediation tools. Now, as I've said many times in my videos before, often a global admin is not enough. So if you want to use roles or role-based groups, so for example, security admins, security readers, and so on, again, you can turn on that role there as well. And you can also create groups of devices here as well. And you can also do that, of course, in PowerShell. Integration with your SIEM system here. And then, of course, there are a number of default rules. So just a suggestion, I know it's easy just to kind of click by these, but this is so important at the beginning of your configuration, okay? It can help you. And certainly, if you plan to do the exam, do not underestimate these settings. They are really, really important. So now that we've kind of configured that, what I'm going to do now is I'm going to come up here into the endpoints. And let's have a look at just some of these settings. So first up, what we're going to get is you're going to get a dashboard here, and you're going to get your exposure score. Now, to be honest, this tenant is pretty empty, so I've got it. Here's one I kind of made earlier. So I'm going to come back here into my endpoint, and I'm going to come into, let's say, here, and you've got vulnerability management, and I'm going to click on just to the dashboard here. Now, one of the things that I really like is the exposure score, and what this does is it just gives you an insight into if any devices are overexposed on the internet. That means potentially devices that have got too many ports open, too many services running, maybe they're not patched right, and so on. And this could be a potential real nightmare, actually. It also integrates into the likes of Secure Score. So you can see here it gives you some recommendations. So again, you can go into that in more details. I'll come back to that in a second. And you can also see if you've got any certificates that are potentially likely to expire, and that is a real nightmare. You can see your score for devices. It shows you your score. At the moment, I've got 100%, and it's handy just to know you've got kind of low and high, or low and medium in this case, and it shows me how I can improve my score over the time, and I'll come back to that in a second. Now, as you can see, any log events, I don't have any at the moment because this is just a demo, but you can see here we have a number of kind of remediation activities that we can have, and it's giving some kind of recommendations and things that you can do. Again, this is linked into those kind of recommendations above. I really like this. So show me a list of your most vulnerable software in your organization. This is awesome. And also, which of my overexposed devices? Again, at a glance, you can see these. So I can click onto, let's say, firmware here. It gives me the full details of it, along with some recommendations. And often, this is just a single-click solution. So click, boom, and you're done. Also, it will give you a list of discovered vulnerabilities. And you can see that it puts these in varying degrees of severity. Again, things like installed devices. So it shows me the state of those installed devices. Just to remember, by the way, that Defender for IoT internet devices is free now, and it's actually included with your E5 subscription. Again, super useful is the ability to have versioning distribution. So again, the understanding, which machines have got certain versions on. And again, do we have any machines that are missing any updates? How cool is that? Again, that's such a critical thing. And again, you've got the event timeline. Remember, this is just in relation to this particular firmware as well. So I really like this feature. Now, as well as that, I can look at these things individually as well. So again, we have the recommendations page here, and you can see that it's giving us some recommendations. Of course, probably one of the most overexposed operating systems on the internet, of course, is well known. It's Linux because it's open source. So it's super important to ensure that if you are running Linux systems, you need to make sure that they are well protected and well patched. It makes some great recommendations for remediation. So it gives you a list of updates. So how do I do it? Click onto this, and it shows me, okay, this is the update. I can export this to a CSV file. I can say mark as done, and I can see if there's any additional information. This particular tenant here, by the way, is a read-only demo tenant. So as I say, with these one-click solutions, you would just be able to click and it would just say fix it. But as I said, this is a read-only solution here. If there's any blocked applications, again, this is quite useful as well. This also integrates, by the way, if you've got the license for Defender for Cloud Apps as well. Inventories, isn't this great? So I need a place to see my assets, so I can see exactly what software I've got, the status of that software, details, I can click into it, details on the vendor, the exposure status, the exposure score here as well. On top of that, you've also got things like vulnerable components within systems. You've got things like browser extensions and certificates. And again, any certificates that are likely to expire. Again, this is really useful. And again, you've got that hardware and firmware options there. So you can see, thankfully, we've got no issues here. So coming down to the vulnerabilities, here you can see that you've both got the common vulnerabilities exposure table. You've also got security advisories, and you can see they're in severity. Click into this, and there is a single fix issue. So you can go to the vulnerability recommendation. It shows you the affected software. If it's a machine that needs patched or anything like that, you can do that. I love it. That is just so powerful. You can also, by the way, in this table, you'll notice just up here on the top of the screen that you've got the email notification settings. So if you can actually go in, you can see it just takes me into the settings page, and you can set the vulnerabilities. Who do you want to inform? Maybe it's an individual, maybe it's a support desk or something like that. So again, super useful. The other thing that we've got, of course, is you've got the event timeline, and you've also got the baseline assessment. So again, you can create your own baseline assessment. This involves a profile, so you can see you can do different benchmarks for perhaps different operating systems or OSs. So I can come in here and it gives me a full description of that particular profile and if it's associated with a specific device. So I'm just going to jump over to this other portal here, and again you've got those weaknesses, you've got event timelines, and you've got those partners and APIs. The other thing that we've got here is evaluations and tutorials. The evaluation lab, unfortunately, is no more, as is the simulations and tutorials for the moment anyway, but it is planned that there will be a replacement for that. So watch this space for more details. So as I said, you've got the endpoint security policies here. So this is where I can come in and I can create a new policy for both Windows, Mac, and also Linux devices there as well. So if I just create one for Windows, you can specify, again, you can see it's just the same thing. You choose the template, and again, what kind of template is it you're looking for? So in this case, I'll just choose the Windows security, and I'll click let's go ahead and create policy. Now this week I'm in Oslo, so I'm going to call this my security policy 1. I'm very imaginative with security. I'll click next, and it says, okay, which configuration settings do you want to configure? So at the moment, I'm going to look at things like Defender. I love this feature. So this is tamper proof or tamper protection on the devices. You definitely want to go ahead and switch that on. You can also switch that on by default, by the way, in the default settings, by the way. The other thing that we've also got is the Windows Defender Security Center. So do you want to disable any of these features? So if you don't want your users going into the protection UI to change any of the settings, again, this is what this is for. So you can disable many of these features, and that essentially prevents the users from seeing these features. So it means that if you're deploying this through, for example, configuration policies, it means that your users won't be able to tamper with anything, which I really like, and I got to take my hat off to Microsoft for that. And the other thing that I wanted to mention is exposure management. Now, exposure management used to be part of Defender for Endpoint, but it's now got its nice own shiny kind of portal here. This is really nice. So it's not just about the overall endpoints, but it's also looking at the content that's running through them as well. So this is really useful. So I can come in and you've got things like attack surface. So I can do, for example, an attack surface map here. It also shows me if there's any immediate threats to my users or devices. Again, really useful. You can also see we have this called Exposure Insights. This is really useful because you can see that we have a number of these initiatives, and you can see business email compromise. There are a number of kind of things that you really should take a look at here. So again, they can either be based on domain or threat articles. So again, you can come into any of these, click into them and have a look, and it tells you what they are and ultimately what they're looking for. Now, again, similar to the likes of Secure Score and Compliance Score, it will make a whole bunch of recommendations for you. So, things like the percentage of users without multi-factor authentication, missing best practices on devices, devices that are missing updates and things like that. This is so good. So again, it then shows us those secure metrics. And these are important metrics. And ultimately, it will also make us some recommendations so that we can actually go ahead and fix these. So you can see here that it's detected that we've got network protection. It's not compliant. It's high risk. I actually want to go ahead and manage that and fix that issue. Okay, so again, super important. So they are some of the configuration settings, ladies and gentlemen. So now what I want to do is I'm going to come into alerts. So ultimately, this is the real power of Defender for Endpoint. So I can come in here and you can see that we have a whole bunch of different alerts. And typically what happens is the more alerts a service or a feature has, it will ultimately generate an incident. So we can generate an incident here. So yes, thank you very much. Looks good. And you can see that we have a number of incidents. So again, I can scroll down and you can see I've got a number of different incidents here. So there's a activity from an infrequent country from a user. Now the chances are that's probably just me. But if I scroll down here, you can see that this looks potentially dangerous. So a multi-stage incident involving initial access and exfiltration. So this is something that we definitely want to take a look at. So you can see here, and excuse my screen here, by the way, you can see that we have in the center, we have an attack map. And that attack map, you can see what entities are linked. You can see that we have a number of different sheet tabs. So you get this, initially you get an attack story. So this is great because literally you can go step by step. So it shows me what the attacker is doing step by step. And if you click on to any of these, let me just come up, let's say this one here. If I click into this, you can see it sends that into the map identity, but also it explains exactly what happened. And it gives me a detailed analytics here. So it shows me exactly what happened. What did the script do? What did the user do? And I can then obviously classify that alert. I can open the alert. I can also manage the alert here as well. And if I think that this is a potentially related incident, I can link this to another alert as well. I can also ask Defender experts. So again, a very, very powerful service that Microsoft provide. You've got the AI, the service that will help you, but you can also get through to a person that specializes in this and can help you. As I said, we can scroll down, we can look at the attack story. So at each stage of the attack, I can have a detailed look at how that attack worked, what was happening, and again, it makes recommendations. I can see the individual alerts. I can see the assets that are affected. So the devices, if there's users affected or infected, I can see those user accounts, and I can then ultimately take action against that. Okay, so enable multi-factor authentication. I can see which mailboxes. So ultimately here, we've got a user that's gone and clicked a malicious link or downloaded a malicious attachment. Now, one of the things that you may want to do is you may want to initiate an investigation. So the investigation may involve some advanced hunting. You may want to gather some evidence. So if you find that something illegal has happened here, again, for an investigation, for legal requirements, you may want to do a full investigation and gather evidence here. Then we get the entire story, we get the summary of it. So we get all the details of the incident. So what happened, how it happened, how they got in, what they did. And again, you can view that evidence. Now, just to remind you that one of the great things about Defender for Endpoint is the automation. So you can automate the action. So for example, if it discovers ransomware, of course, it will then take action to isolate that particular machine so that that cannot go any further. Finally, of course, we have got the advanced hunting. So all data in Microsoft 365, Azure, and all of these tools is typically held in a table format. And one of the quickest ways to look through a table is to use something called KQL, Custo Query Language. So Custo Query Language, here you can see that we have a number of different alerts, and you've got a number of different commands here. So again, there's a number of different commands. You can see what tables it's looking at. You can run a query here and it will give you the result down here. Now, one of the great things about this is you can then export this out, you can refine it, you can produce a graph or a chart out of it. It is truly awesome, and I'm going to cover this in a future presentation. Okay, so that is that. Now, the final piece of the puzzle, of course, is Defender for Endpoint is an important component in Microsoft Sentinel. So if I go into Microsoft Sentinel, I'm going to open up this Sentinel workspace here, and you can see that Sentinel essentially, or XDR, essentially collates all of this information in. So anything in the logs, for example, I would be able to see in this portal. Again, this is just a demo portal. But if I come into incidents, again, I've got those same incidents here. So everything kind of filters through. And if I kind of scroll down here, I can look for any potential issues. I can investigate. Again, very, very similar experience to Defender for Endpoint. So there you have it. Microsoft Defender for Endpoint. You're a little bit wiser. Hey, listen, I really hope you enjoyed it. If you did, bump the like button up there. It does make a difference to the channel. And if you've got questions and comments, as always, get those down below and I'll do my best for you. And if you've not subscribed, come on and join our great learning community by clicking that subscribe button up there. It'd be nice to have you on board. That's it for today. Thanks so much for joining me, and I'll see you next time. You stay safe. Hey, thanks so much for dropping by today. Here's a couple of videos that you may enjoy, and while you're here, go ahead, click on the subscribe button and you won't miss out.